Okay, I'm going to start. This special meeting of the Board of Education for April 2nd, 2019 is called to order. Welcome to everybody present and to our television viewers. This evening, the board will be voting on the ratification of the 2019-2020 Portland Association of Teachers Agreement. The proposed resolution has been posted as required by state law. This meeting is being televised live and will be replayed throughout the next 2 weeks. Please check the board website for replay times. This meeting is also being streamed live on our PPS TV Services website. What you have here is an agreement for a one-year extension of the contract with PAT. There have been a few changes that are noted on the memo that you have. And this will bring the contract, it will cover the next school year, 2019-2020. And next year, we will be starting negotiations on the follow-on contract. And that will be a full bargaining process. On behalf of the board, I'd like to recognize and thank the members of the district's bargaining team, Carol Hawkins, Sharon Reese, Claire Hertz, John Stellwagen, Director Julia Brim-Edwards, and me. And I'd like to ask Superintendent Guerrero to provide some commentary on the contract.
Sure, I'll be brief. Good evening, directors. We're very pleased to be bringing forward this evening for your consideration contract ratification with our labor partner PAT for 1920. I'm going to invite up two of our staff, Carol Hawkins and Sharon Reese, who are going to want to just for our listeners' benefit highlight some of the features of this contract agreement.
I think there are 3 or 4 major accomplishments in this contract that I'd like to call attention to. One is the continuation of the Rapid Response Team, which provides critical services to our schools and our educators in helping with the difficult work they do. It was a pilot program that was started in the last contract, and due to the success of the program, we were able to commit to continuing the funding of those additional positions for the next year. We also completed some leftover tasks from last year related to the overages and thresholds for our librarians and media specialists. We were able to reach an agreement on what those stipends would look like for that group of educators. Additionally, we had some language updates and some other minor changes. The across-the-board increase for this group is 3%, which is, I think, fair and a good recognition of the hard work our folks do. The last success I'll point out is the creation of an IBB process to work on some difficult issues that we've had with our contract and our union partners, and provides an opportunity to improve our contract language around areas related to student safety.
Can you explain what IBB means?
I can. So IBB, if I can say it, is interest-based bargaining, which is a collaborative process. We'll engage with our union partners and work on solutions that are both mutually agreed to and mutually beneficial in discussing some of these really difficult topics. It's a facilitated process that is scheduled to begin in late April.
Okay, thank you.
I'd only add, obviously, we're pleased to have the stability and security that this extension provides for. Portland Association of Teachers membership has agreed to this extension as of their March 19th meeting.
I think another thing that's worth noting, and you could comment on the substance of it more thoroughly than I, but just that along with the contractual changes, we've really become much more disciplined and much more collaborative in our ongoing dialogue with PAT on issues that arise in our schools on a daily basis. And there were hiccups in that process really continually up until the last year, in my experience. And from everything I hear from both sides, those day-to-day slogging through issues that arise in a mutual, respectful way is going much better.
Thanks, Amy. I just want to add to that. I think the PAT team came to the bargaining table ready to work and reach agreement, and were very, very helpful and really partnered with us in getting things done. So I appreciate that.
Just a second, Director Constam here. We do appreciate the tone by which our continued working relationship continues to evolve. Like any relationship, it takes work and care and feeding and honesty and candor, and I think we model that on both the labor and management side. So we hope to just keep growing and developing that relationship.
Any other questions?
Not right now, but at some point in the future, like some context for the library staffing, how that might compare with other districts, if that's readily available.
Sure. Yeah, we'll definitely get that for you.
Or even through the budget process, how it's coming forward in our budget proposal.
Yeah, and ultimately what it looks like at each school.
And I'd like to just, I did a sort of formulaic thank you to the bargaining team. I thought it was a much shorter process than I anticipated, even though one night went on very, very late. But I anticipated that this was going to require numerous sessions, and I think it's a testament to both sides coming to the table with really clear ideas about what we wanted to accomplish, and a real spirit of collaboration that allowed us to come to agreement, I thought, remarkably quickly and amicably, and I think it's it sets a tone of better cooperation, and the educators and the district joining forces to benefit students. So I'm looking forward to the next negotiation and the IBB process, kind of furthering that work. And I especially want to call out Carol Hawkins, who came in sort of just before things started to happen. In talking about this extension, and leapt in with both feet and really set the tone, and it's been a pleasure, a real pleasure.
Well, thank you.
Seeing you work,
Thank you.
and I'm looking forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you. I would echo that sentiment. I really enjoyed having the board members be part of the process. It was great to have your perspective and your viewpoints in those meetings. So thank you. I know you guys have a lot of time commitments, so I recognize that.
But not much at 3 a.m., I have to say, so,
Calendar's open.
yeah.
So a couple questions and also then a statement I want to make. So just on the finances, and I don't know if this is a question for one of you or for the Deputy Superintendent for Business and Operations, but in the contract ratification document, it just says it's a 3%. So just for on the record publicly, I'd like to get what the 3% was, and then the dollar amount, or maybe you can confirm it. And then the other piece would be an explanation of how that interacts with the group health increase. So my understanding is the COLA's 3% is $7 million approximately, and some. And then there's a $9 million increase for the group health, and I'm just looking for the explanation about how that works. So is that automatic because we have the increase in the salary, and that's the wage-related expenses that
So some
flow
of
from
that,
that increase.
some of that increase will be related to PERS increases, which is a function of pay. Some of that will be related to planned increases in the insurance premiums and the, pardon me, the district's contribution to those is a fixed percentage in the PAT contract, so it's 93% of the total cost.
So those wouldn't happen otherwise, but for the ratification, I mean, that's baked in because we're increasing salaries, I'm just trying to understand what that piece is.
I'm going to look to Claire.
Okay.
So the insurance benefits are not tied to salary. The insurance benefits are tied to 93% of the premium for each member. Okay, and the reason it's a higher cost than you might anticipate is because the prior year we had a large refund that kept costs down. So even though premiums increased last year, we had a reduction because of returning premiums that were, the reserves got higher than, okay. So our premiums are based on the amount of claims that we have over time, right? And we have to keep a certain level in the trust. So when that reserve gets too high, they return it back to us, and then it becomes a credit in that year. So in 18-19, there was a credit, which lowered our insurance cost. But the premium still went up for 2 years, and we don't have a credit to offset it for 19-20. Does that make sense?
So it makes it look like more.
It
of
looks
an
like it's more
increase.
because it's 2 years worth.
But by ratifying this, it's a 17 million, we have a $7 million COLA and then a 9 million
Yes.
other sort of wage-related increase, and then 300 for the national teachers,
That's continuing what was there before, yes.
and then the rapid response is 200 to 300, and for about 17 million in total.
Yes.
Okay. Which is already baked into, well, it will be baked into the superintendent's
Proposal.
budget.
Yes.
Okay. So I guess I'll just provide some commentary, and I want to join others who have complimented the bargaining team, and just the change in the tenor. So I served on 2 bargaining teams when I was on the board previously, from 2001 to 2005. So twice was on the bargaining team, and then in the last 20 months have been on the bargaining team twice again. And I think the difference in the tone and the tenor, and how we work through issues, and sort of a much more collaborative spirit, I think, on both sides. So I want to sort of recognize the staff leadership that's been displayed, because I think it's a reflection of not only a change from PAT, but also a change in how the district has shown up. So I want to thank all the staff, and I know it's a considerable amount of time. And then I want to provide some context for my both my perspective and my vote tonight. So it's obviously been informed by the 4 times I've been on the bargaining team, which one thing great about being on the bargaining team is they always do end, and you end with a ratified contract. But I think having had that experience, I'll just bring a little bit different perspective to this. So in the midst of the first contract negotiation we had this time around, the Whitehurst report was released with recommendations relating to building and personnel files, relating to professional conduct between staff and students. And by the time I think the superintendent and the 17-18 board was in place, most of those things had already been agreed to. So they were sort of settled, even though bargaining went on for a while after that. So even though the Whitehurst report came out with the recommendations, those provisions had already been agreed to in the bargaining. So that had occurred, and then in addition, coming out of the Whitehurst report, the board's Policy and Governance Committee met for months and drafted a new professional conduct policy between staff and students. And it was out for public comment for 21 days, and it's actually now been out for public comment since last October, and hasn't yet been ratified because there was a demand to bargain and to put this into the process. And so we haven't yet had a substantive discussion with PAT about it. I'm going to be a no tonight because I felt when the Whitehurst report came out, and I felt I made a commitment to tackle the issues as a board member in collaboration with PAT in our next bargaining round, not knowing what that would look like. So I'm disappointed that while there was a collaborative spirit, that and I think both sides showed up in a way to discuss some of the issues. I'm disappointed that the disagreement really primarily focuses just on the economic provisions in the contract and not some of the substantive issues that I felt were really important to address, which was the building and personnel files. Also, I think it was just a missed opportunity not to have looked at had a discussion about the professional conduct policy when we've had it out for a pretty substantial amount of time. So while I believe the COLAs were the right amount and were justified and we need to be fair with our employees, I think it's a real missed opportunity that we're going to potentially go potentially another year before we implement changes in the building and personnel files, and also with the staff and staff-student conduct. And for me, those are really important provisions relating to student safety and also transparency in the system. And so the fact that we are sort of rolling over into another year, and I recognize there is a mechanism, and I'm hopeful, and I think this is one thing you have to be continuously hopeful. I'm hopeful that it will lead to a change in the contract that better enhances our ability to protect students. There's no guarantee because what we have is an agreement on a process, not an agreement on a change. And so so I'll have to be hopeful, but in the meantime, I don't feel like I can support rolling over for another year a contract with the same provisions in it without knowing that those provisions are going to be changed. And the fact that it's a pretty substantial financial package that we put on the table, which I think from the district standpoint was the right thing to do, but I also felt we had some really important things that we wanted to and should have had discussed at the same time, sort of a concurrent discussion, and that didn't happen. So I'm going to be fully Can I finish? I'm going to be fully supportive of the process going forward, and in the district sort of advancing the recommendations that we think will enhance our ability to protect students.
I think it's important to set the context. I think there are a lot of misapprehensions here, so I think it's important to set the context about this was a limited reopener for this contract, and you can describe that better than I in terms of addressing these issues. And if we were to have put all of our, I don't think Director Burm-Edwards expresses any concerns regarding student safety that are not shared equally or greater by other members of this board. But to have included that issue in this bargaining process would have been an entire renewal of a full bargaining process rather than to take care of some of the housekeeping items and move on to IBB. So just to set that context a little bit, or perhaps Rita, you want to set that context as to why we chose to make a commitment to tackle those issues in a specific IBB process. And there was also a statement about to wait another year. And I don't think anyone has an expectation that it will take a year to address those issues, or that we won't be able to implement them immediately once we do reach agreement. That is absolutely our hope and intention in that process. So I think it's important to address some of those misconceptions.
Let me just say one. So the board as a whole made a decision to do this as a two-stage process.
Right, unanimously.
We had earlier decided to make this a limited opener and do essentially a rollover with one, maybe two major items from both sides open to negotiation. Both sides identified those issues, and from the board perspective, it was precisely what Director Brim Edwards mentioned, that accomplishing the recommendations from the Whitehurst report that would entail changes in treatment of building files and handling of concerns about educator conduct, and also talking with PAT about their concerns on the proposed policy around professional conduct. And some months ago, 3 months ago, I want to say, more or less, the full board made a decision that the kinds of issues that are involved in professional conduct are sufficiently complicated and sensitive, and require that they require really a significant investment of time and energy to develop policies and contractual language that would allow us to have a system that really ensures student safety. And that was best done, it was decided by the full board, that would best be done through an interest-based bargaining process rather than a traditional contract negotiation process. So I think while I understand the concerns that Director Brim Edwards expresses, I think both the PPS team and the PAT team have acted in a way that makes me uncharacteristically optimistic that we will in fact be able to come up with an agreement around these two major issues through an interest-based bargaining process that will be both robust and sensitive to the sort of the essence of the teaching profession. I would say most of my life for the last 20 years has been spent around child safety. So this is a very big item for me, and I think for the whole board, as well as the administration. So,
And as well as PAT.
as well as PAT. So I think this is going to be we're still coming up with dates for the for this IBB process. But there was a lot of discussion, and Director Brim Edwards was part of it during the bargaining process. A lot of discussion about kind of mutual agreement that we needed to do this, and we needed to do it carefully, but also expeditiously. So I would anticipate, I think both sides have an expectation that we're going to have a completed agreement covering these two major items by the end of this school year, and probably before then.
And it's getting underway this month.
It's, yes.
Yeah, I think it's helpful to clarify what this timing is, because a couple of dates and timelines have been identified. And first of all, I'd like to start by saying that I'm always pleased when Chair Moore is uncharacteristically optimistic. I am as well. I want to reiterate that the interest-based bargaining process is starting at the end of this month. There is a strong sense of urgency from the bargaining team as well as from PAT, and I also expect that we will have a conclusion by the end of this school year, and we have strong intentions around implementation as soon as we get agreement.
I think we're looking at the fastest way to get there.
Yeah.
So I just
And
have a couple comments.
that's why we voted for
Sorry.
it.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I thought you were comment. So I just want to respond to a couple of things we said. So yes, there was a limited agreement, but like we agreed to the limit. I mean, we set the limit. So it's not that there was something artificial or somebody else outside said this is what it's limited to. We agreed to the limitations. And while there has been some discussions about the full board, I think from the very beginning I have expressed a concern about the sequencing and the decoupling. So not there. I think there was full agreement on the issue that we felt was really a priority for the board to bring forward. What I have consistently said is the decoupling of the two. From the ratification of the economic piece of it from the other piece was not something that I was supportive of. It doesn't mean I'm not, that I agree on the board's priorities and the district's priorities and the process by which we're going to get it. But the decoupling, I think, creates some vulnerability for the district because we, in effect, tonight will be ratifying one side of things that is important to both the district and to teachers, but we don't yet have the thing that we identified as most important. And I'm going to go back to the year, and it has been a year because the Whitehurst report came out last spring. Last October, we had the professional conduct, it'll be great to have something done by the end of the school year, but it still will be a year later. And well, if you read the language, and again, I'll be the first to applaud the group if we have something by the end of the year. But the agreement, the language doesn't require that there be an agreement by that time period, nor even what the agreement is. So it just, we have less certainty, and I guess from given my experience over the years, I have a different perspective because I've been part of different things. So I'm hopeful, and I will be completely supportive of the district's team in accomplishing what I think is something really important for us.
Any other questions for staff?
I guess my opinion is that this is the most expeditious way to resolve all the issues, including the student safety issue. Because if we hadn't done the limited reopener, we would be engaged in a lengthy, full bargaining process for all of these issues that would be underway now and may well take us beyond the point where we're going to get resolution through the IBB process for student safety. So the reason that we as a board made this decision was because we thought it was the most efficient and the most sensible way to get to the conclusion that we're all seeking. I believe we're all seeking.
Okay, the board will now consider resolution number 5862, 2019-20 agreement between Portland Association of Teachers and School District number 1J, Multnomah County, Oregon. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Okay. Okay, Director Constam moves, Director Esparza Brown seconds the motion to adopt resolution 5862. Is there any further board discussion on this resolution?
Yes, as always, I still have my wife and my sister and my niece teaching, so that is a conflict, but one that I'm allowed to vote on per guidance from the Oregon School Boards Association because the impact is so small.
Okay. Do we have any public comment?
We do not.
Okay. The board will now vote on Resolution 5862. All in favor, please indicate by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed? No? Any abstentions? Resolution 5862 is approved by a vote of 6 to 1 with 6 to 1, period. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
The board will now vote on the remaining items in its business agenda, already having voted on Resolution 5862. Ms. Houston, are there any changes to the business agenda?
No.
Do I have a motion and a second?
So moved?
Director Constam moves, Director Bailey seconds. Motion to adopt the business agenda. Is there any public comment?
No.
Any board discussion?
So I just want to note, sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to comment on part of what we're approving here is several field trips. And I think it would be helpful as we're thinking about our racial equity lens and using that to have as part of the applications to have demographic data of like, who are the kids that are going on the field trips. Because I tend to see the schools that are better resourced maybe going on the field trips. So it'd be really, I think, helpful for us to see who is accessing those and what schools are and what are the demographics of the kids that are going on the different field trips or excursions. So that is just my thoughts on something that might be added, thinking about our policy.
So that's kind of a great sort of complement to the issue I was going to raise. Of just noticing that you have two schools going to the same event and a 900 student difference. Pardon? 900. I'm sorry. What did I say?
900.
Okay, $900 per student. Right. Yes, for the same trip, and just as we continue to look at how we support our students having equitable experiences, not necessarily based on the affluence of the parental student body or their foundation.
Any other comments? Okay, the board will now vote on the business agenda. All in favor, please indicate by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, say no. Any abstentions? The business agenda is approved by a vote of 7 to 0. Okay, this is an abbreviated board meeting. We will be adjourning the meeting now, and we will reconvene upstairs in Mazama, correct? In Mazama for a work session devoted to the visioning process. Okay, this meeting is adjourned.